Well, welcome again to another one of my podcasts, and I'm coming to you from my living room, or maybe I should say my new addition. It can't be very new because my son actually added it onto the house, I think about 20 years ago. So, but we still call it our new addition because it's the newest part of the house. Well, today let's take a look at Proverbs. Proverbs is an interesting book. It's was a book that was written by Solomon, and it tells us right in the very beginning that Solomon was the author, and that Solomon was the son of David, and David was the king of Israel. So here we have a son of a king that's writing this book. And history tells us that Solomon was a very wise man, but yet he did not heed his own instructions. Uh, Solomon started good. He started life fearing God, and I believe he feared God at the end of his life, but he made some foolish choices, and he did not end well. God told him not to marry foreign wives, and he was not to collect horses, and he did both. And in doing so, he fell away from God. They drew him away from God. You know, simple things sometimes we don't realize that what happens is they draw us away from God. Uh, Anything that you put before God becomes an idol, whether it's in David's or in Solomon's case. It was all the wives he had and all the horses he had, and he had chariots, and he relied on his own strength. God did bless him, and God allowed him to have all these things, but you know, sometimes God allows things to happen in our lives to test us. So if you have a lot in your life, or you're a busy person, and you put your work or you put anything before God, that can become an idol. And that's exactly what happens. Well, it says that the book of Proverbs is really the beginning of knowledge. We learn from this book, and we are to gain wisdom from this book. Knowledge and wisdom are two different things. Uh, if you think about it, and this is kind of a funny thing, it says, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. And this is true. You know, we want to apply the knowledge that we have in a wise way. So the Proverbs of Solomon start out by saying that to know wisdom and instructions, to understand words of insight, to receive instructions and wise dealings in righteousness, justice, and equality, to give prudence to the simple. You know, the simplest person of we would call the common class, the poor of the world, and really, that's the ones that God gives all this wisdom to. It isn't those that are high and mighty. I tell you what, you look at government and they do awful stupid things. It said, let the wise hear and increase in learning. So even if you're just a simple person leading a simple life, God is the one that deals with you. He doesn't deal with the high and mighty. He deals with the low and humble person of this world. It says to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. And sometimes they seem to be riddles. But this is, to me, the most important verse in the book of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions. In other words, if you're not a wise person, if you're not listening to what God has to say, then you're a fool and you despise wisdom and instructions. That's exactly what this verse is saying. Now we get into the meat of the very first chapter. Hear, my son, your father's instructions, and forsake not your mother's teaching. You know, God has given you parents to teach you and to lead you. Sometimes we don't get good parents, but they will give you instructions. God will make sure of that. So listen to your parents. And this is a message to all the kids out there that might be listening. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. That's what Solomon is telling us here. Do not follow those that are following the wrong way. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. In other words, we're going to rob somebody, or we're going to hurt somebody. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. And then it says, like Sheol or hell, however you want to look at it, let us swallow them alive. In other words, they are going to go after those that are innocent. And then it says, like those that go down to the pit, we shall find all precious goods. We shall find houses with plunder. In other words, we're going out, we're going to rob people. And then it says, throw in your lot among us. Well, and it says that they'll all have one purse. In other words, they're going to share the loot from the robbery. But what does the instructions tell us? My son, do not walk in their ways with them. Hold back your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain is the net spread in the sight of the birds. The birds see the net being spread, but yet they get trapped in it. You see what is going on, how many people end up in prison and jail and even die. Man lives by the sword, he dies by the sword. You live by the gun, you die by the gun. The same thing. But these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy in unjust gain. Don't do it. It takes away the life of their possessors. Well, we get to verse 20 of this chapter, and it's a call for wisdom. Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the market, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will you scoffers delight in their scoffing? O fools, hate knowledge. Yes, a fool will hate all this instructions. If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make my words known to you. I'm going to stop here for 1 minute. This is a person we are talking about. Who is wisdom? God is wisdom. If you turn at my reproof. You know, Solomon might have penned the words to Proverbs, but it's God's word. It's put in his Bible. It's part of the canon. It's part of the instructions to mankind on how to live a godly life. Well, it says, I will pour my Spirit upon you. And that's what happens when you come to the Lord. He pours His Spirit on you and teaches you to live a godly life. Because you have called I have called and you refuse to listen. It's God calling you, but you refuse. That's what it says. I have stretched out my hands, and no one has heeded. God is opening His arms. He's saying, come, come. The book of Revelation says, I stand at the door and knock. He who hears me and opens, I will come into him and will sup with him. It's God on the outside. He's not forcing Himself on you. He's gently knocking on the door and asking permission to come into your life. And that's the beginning of wisdom. Because you have ignored all my counsels and would have none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. If you don't want to come to God, God says, fine. But I'm going to laugh at you because you're digging your own grave. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamities come like a whirlwind, when disaster and anguish come upon you, God is not going to be there for you. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. Don't wait till all this happens and then scream and call unto God, because He doesn't want to hear it. He's already making the offer right now. They will seek my diligence, but will not find it. They will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. This saddens my heart that people refuse not to come to God when He calls. They would have none of my counsel, He says. They despise my reproof. Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their ways and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by the turning away, and the complacency of fools destroy them. But whoever listens to me, whoever listens to God, He's wisdom, to me will draw secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. That is chapter 1 of the book of Proverbs. And I really hope that you learned something from this book. It is one of the best books for instructions for life that you can find. Well, I guess I'm going to close my podcast, and this is my advice to you today. Seek the Lord while He can be found, and you're to do it at a young age. Don't wait till you get old, because the older you get, the harder you get. With that said, I'm going to end my podcast. Have a great day, and just heed the warning that I have given you out of the first chapter of the book of Proverbs. Goodbye for now. Till next time, Lord bless.